For 46 years, we've accepted the most distinctive feature of the xenomorph without question, that smooth, eyeless dome. We told ourselves it was just H.R. Giger being a surrealist genius, making them scarier because you couldn't tell when they were looking at you. But what if I told you that wasn't just a design choice? What if the xenomorph's eyeless head is actually the result of millions of years of evolution? What if they had to lose their eyes to survive? And what if the thing that forced this adaptation has been hiding in plain sight this whole time? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're breaking down the most mind-blowing revelation from Alien Earth Episode 5. A revelation that doesn't just explain a new monster, but completely reframes everything we thought we knew about the most iconic creature design in sci-fi history. And it all starts with a parasite called the eyeball monster. In Episode 5 of Alien Earth, we witnessed something that should have been impossible. A creature no bigger than a tennis ball, officially designated Species 64 or T. ocellus, but known to fans as the eyeball monster, didn't just encounter a xenomorph. It actively hunted one. But here's the detail that changes everything. When this parasitic eyeball launched itself at the xenomorph's head, it was looking for something that wasn't there. Eyes. Think about that for a second. This creature's entire survival strategy revolves around stealing eyes. It climbs onto faces, uses tentacles with extraordinary strength to physically pry eyeballs out of their sockets, then inserts itself into the skull to take control of the host. That's its only method of attack, its only way to survive. And it tried to use the same technique on a xenomorph, which means this isn't their first encounter. This is instinct. This is recognition between ancient enemies. Suddenly, the xenomorph's most iconic feature, that smooth, eyeless dome that H.R. Giger supposedly designed just to make them scarier because you couldn't tell when they were looking at you, takes on a completely different meaning. This wasn't an artistic choice. This was survival. Let me paint you a picture of what we're actually seeing here. The eyeball monster, or T. ocellus as the scientists call it, is a parasitic organism that has one very specific method of attack. According to the Weyland-Yutani research files shown on screen, it uses tentacles to climb into and dislodge the eyes of other living organisms. Once it gets into that eye socket, it takes over the ocular pathways to the brain, overriding all neural transmissions. Your body becomes its puppet. In Episode 4, we watched it do this to a sheep. The creature forced a quadruped to stand on two legs, turned a prey animal into a predator. The monitoring equipment showed the sheep's brain patterns changing to indicate intelligent thought. This isn't just a parasite, it's a body snatcher that targets the one vulnerability almost every complex organism shares: eyes. It can control living hosts, dead hosts, and in Episode 2, it even tried to attack a synthetic, suggesting it's still evolving new capabilities. Now, imagine you're a species that's been hunted by these things for millions of years. Every generation, the ones with eyes get taken over, turned into weapons against their own kind. What's the only evolutionary response that guarantees survival? Don't have eyes. Can't steal what doesn't exist. The xenomorphs didn't just randomly evolve to be eyeless. They were forced to be eyeless. It was either that or extinction. But the evolution didn't stop there. And this is where things get really interesting. Look at the xenomorph's secondary jaw, that inner mouth that shoots out like a piston. For decades, we've thought of it just as another weapon, another way to kill. But watch how it moves. Look at its shape. the precision of its extension. It's the perfect tool for one very specific job: plucking an eyeball parasite out of a host's socket. Think about it. If your species' greatest enemy is a parasite that hides in eye sockets, you need a way to extract it. You need something that can reach in with surgical precision, grab the invader, and pull it out before it can burrow deeper. The inner jaw isn't just a killing tool, it's an extraction device. The Xenomorphs' acid blood? We always assumed it was just a defense mechanism to make them dangerous even when wounded. But acid would be the perfect defense against a gelatinous, tentacled parasite trying to get close enough to steal your eyes. One drop of that acid would completely dissolve T. ocellus's soft body. Even the Xenomorphs' method of sensing, through pheromones, electrical impulses, and vibrations instead of sight, makes perfect sense in this context. According to expanded universe lore, Xenomorphs use old senses, like detecting fear through pheromones. They adapted to hunt in complete darkness because they had to give up their eyes to survive. Every single aspect of the Xenomorphs' biology that we've taken for granted suddenly makes sense as a defensive evolution against one specific threat. The fight in Episode 5 isn't just an action scene. It's a clash between two species that have been shaping each other's evolution for potentially millions of years. When the possessed engineer Shmuel encounters the Xenomorph on the bridge, watch what happens. The eyeball monster doesn't run. Despite controlling a relatively weak human body against a perfect killing machine, it attacks. It leaps onto the Xenomorph's back, bites at its neck, fights with a ferocity that goes beyond self-preservation. This is ancestral hatred. This is instinctual recognition. And when the human host fails, when Shmuel's body is impaled by the Xenomorph's tail, the eyeball monster does something extraordinary. It ejects from the corpse and launches itself directly at the Xenomorph's head. It's still trying to find eyes that haven't existed for millennia. The Xenomorph, for its part, doesn't immediately react. There's a moment of what can only be described as recognition. These creatures know each other on a genetic level, and the Xenomorph appears to retreat. After shaking off the eyeball monster, it doesn't stick around to finish the fight. It runs away. When was the last time you saw a Xenomorph retreat from anything? As one article noted, this might be the first time we've ever seen a scared Xenomorph.
And here's what makes this theory even more interesting. The original Xenomorph design actually had eyes. In Alan Dean Foster's novelization of Alien, based on early scripts and Geiger's initial designs, the creature is described as having eyes far too big for even a huge head. The eyes were removed late in the design process. Geiger himself said he removed them because it made the creatures much more frightening if one could not tell they were looking at them. But what if this design decision accidentally mirrored a real evolutionary adaptation? What if the most terrifying design choice also happened to be the most logical survival strategy against a parasite that targets eye-stealing parasites? And consider this. The Xenomorph is described as the perfect organism. But perfect for what? Killing? There are more efficient killers in nature. Reproducing? Their life cycle is actually incredibly complex and vulnerable. But if you're designing an organism to be immune to parasite possession, to be unable to be controlled or taken over by something that targets neural pathways through ocular connections, then yes, the Xenomorph is perfect. It's the perfect anti-parasite organism. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The Magellanite collected both these specimens during a 65-year mission into deep space. Weyland-Yutani knew about both species. They knew about their capabilities, and they put them on the same ship. Why would you transport two alien species together unless you knew they were connected? Unless you were specifically interested in their interaction? The company might have known about this evolutionary relationship all along. They might have been trying to study it, to weaponize it. Think about the applications. A parasite that can control any host except the one organism evolved to resist it. A perfect organism that evolved specifically to be uncontrollable. This reframes the entire Alien franchise. Every movie where Weyland-Yutani desperately tries to capture and control xenomorphs takes on new meaning when you realize they're trying to harness the one creature that evolution designed to be impossible to control. The company's obsession with xenomorphs isn't just about biological weapons. It's about understanding the evolutionary arms race that created the perfect, uncontrollable organism. If this theory is true, and the evidence is compelling, it completely changes how we understand the alien universe. First, it means xenomorphs aren't apex predators. They're prey that evolved into predators. Their aggression, their rapid reproduction, their hive structure, it's all defensive evolution against a parasite that turns your own species against you. Second, it explains why xenomorphs are so adaptable, taking on traits from their hosts. If you're constantly fighting a parasite that can control any body, you need to be able to function in any form, to recognize your enemy no matter what shape it takes. And third, it suggests that somewhere out there might be a planet where this evolutionary war is still raging, where eyeball monsters and proto-xenomorphs are locked in an endless cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation. And finally, it means that humanity has stumbled into the middle of a conflict older than our entire species. We're not just dealing with alien monsters, we're dealing with the end result of millions of years of evolutionary warfare.
But this revelation raises even more terrifying questions. If xenomorphs evolved specifically to counter T. ocellus, why do they still have the perfect tools to fight them? The inner jaw that could extract parasites, the acid blood that could dissolve them. Why keep these features if the enemy can no longer threaten you? Unless the war isn't over. What if losing their eyes was just the first step? What if T. ocellus is still evolving, still finding new ways to infiltrate and control? The fact that it can animate dead hosts, that it shows near-human problem-solving abilities, that it even attempted to attack a synthetic being, these could all be recent adaptations. The evolutionary arms race might still be active, and we've just put both combatants on Earth. There's also the disturbing possibility that T. ocellus didn't just shape xenomorph evolution physically, but behaviorally. Do xenomorphs need to reproduce through hosts, to spread rapidly and aggressively? What if this entire reproductive strategy evolved as a numbers game against a parasite that could turn your own kind against you? The more I think about it, the more I realize we're not looking at two separate species. We're looking at two halves of the same evolutionary story. You can't understand one without the other. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. Humanity, with our forward-facing eyes, our binocular vision that we're so proud of, we're the perfect hosts for T. ocellus. We're walking around with big, vulnerable targets right in the middle of our faces. The xenomorphs evolved past this vulnerability millions of years ago. They paid the price, giving up visual perception for survival. But they gained immunity to one of the universe's most insidious parasites. And now both species are on Earth. One that we can see coming, but can't stop. One that we can't see coming at all. Boy Cavalier is keeping the eyeball monster in his lab, studying it, maybe even trying to weaponize it. Weyland-Yutani is obsessed with capturing xenomorphs. Both companies are playing with forces shaped by eons of warfare they don't understand. They think they're dealing with weapons. They're actually dealing with veterans of the longest war in the galactic history. So there you have it.
The reason xenomorphs have no eyes might not be purely artistic. It could be survival in its purest form. For 46 years, we've been staring at evidence of what could be an ancient evolutionary arms race without realizing it. Every time we've watched a xenomorph hunt in the dark, using senses we don't understand, we might have been watching a species that sacrificed sight for freedom. Freedom from parasite control, freedom from becoming a puppet. H.R. Geiger created a masterpiece of design, stating he removed the eyes to make them more frightening. But maybe his artistic instincts aligned with a deeper biological logic. Maybe the most terrifying design is also the most practical one, when your enemy literally steals eyes. The next time you see that smooth, eyeless dome, remember, you might not just be looking at a monster. You could be looking at a survivor, a species that faced an impossible enemy and found the one solution that worked. Give up your greatest vulnerability, even if it's also your greatest strength. The xenomorph didn't just evolve to be the perfect killing machine, it might have evolved to be perfectly ungovernable. And in a universe full of parasites that want to control you, that might be the only evolution that matters. What do you think? Does this theory completely change how you see xenomorphs? Are the fans onto something here, or is this just an amazing coincidence? And here's the really scary question. If T. ocellus forced xenomorphs to evolve away their eyes, what is it going to force humanity to evolve away from? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see my deep dive into the eyeball monster's intelligence and why it might be collecting human memories, make sure you're subscribed, because that video is going to reveal something even more terrifying than what we've discussed today. Until next time, remember, in space, no one can hear you scream. But on Earth, with the eyeball monster around, screaming might be the only way to know you're still you. Keep your eyes open while you still can.